Hello Patriots, and welcome to the channel again. On today's video, we're going to be discussing this idea of a cashless society. This is really being pushed hard, especially by many of those on the left. This idea, no more paper money, no more coins, just everything digital. This is a horrible idea. We're going to be going over just a few of the reasons why. Let's talk first about this idea that there's a national coin shortage. Let me just go on record and tell you, I do not believe there is a national coin shortage. I think this is a hoax that is being pushed by the big chain stores. And here is the reason why. A friend of mine recently went over to Walmart, bought a soda and a bag of chips, and notice what the receipt says. They should have received 63 cents and change, but now it's just listed as a donation. A few weeks ago, this store was listing this as a Black Lives Matter donation, but there was a lot of complaining about that, so now it's just listed as donation. My friend who put this up and shared it with me said, listen, I wasn't notified that I was making a donation. I wasn't even asked if I wanted to make a donation. I just thought it was $2 even till I went home and looked at the receipt. And so here you have the big chain stores would be providing no goods. They would be providing no services. They're just making an extra 63 cents in this case. And while that may not seem like a lot of money, remember there are hundreds of millions of Americans. And how many of us, virtually everybody, at some point in your day, you're going to shop at a big chain store and they will be making a quarter here, 63 cents there. We are talking about hundreds of millions of dollars every single month that is going to be made for nothing. And you're going to be making a donation, and it's not one you can take off on your taxes either, because you don't even have a record of who you have donated to. A horrible idea, a fake shortage. You heard about fake news? This is a fake shortage. Let's talk about some of the other problems with having a cashless society. Do you realize that if you don't have cash, it means the government will be able to track every single thing that you buy? It means everywhere that you go, you will be tracked, and the government will have a record of where you have been, what time, what you bought, all kinds of things. And not only are freedom-loving Americans should be pushing back against this more government knowledge on us, it's also going to make life very inconvenient. Think about this. If you want to do something as simple as have a yard sale, well, you can't just have a yard sale anymore and charge somebody 50 cents for some plates you're getting rid of, or a buck for some toy robot you're going to sell. No, you now have to have a phone or an internet connection to connect to somebody's credit card online to be able to even do little small transactions in a yard sale. It'd be inconvenient if you have your kids and you want to give them some allowance money. Kid did the dishes, they mow the yard, so you want to give them some allowance. Well, now you have to run a credit card to make a deposit in your 6-year-old's bank account just to give them an allowance. It also would make gifts inconvenient. I know a lot of people over your friends, family, or people at your church, when a kid graduates, you like to give them a card, maybe slip some money in the card to congratulate them on graduating. Well, you can't do that now. You have to be able to run that through the digital records to be able to give. And a lot of people like to be able to give anonymously. They don't want any recognition for that. They don't want any accolades. And it's a way that they can just be a blessing and not have to worry about the rest of that. Can't give any more anonymously every single thing that somebody receives. They would say, this is who did it. This is how much. All of this would be tracked, make life really inconvenient. Not to mention, this whole thing the parents have been doing about the tooth fairy will be completely shot, because what's the tooth fairy going to do? It's going to be a deposit in the kid's bank account for, one tooth? It's not going to work at all. And that alone should say, well, forget this idea. Well, let's talk about some more of the other real reasons to push this idea against a cashless society. If the governor comes out one day and says, hey, I say we're going to shut down everything again, and I command you to shut down. You know what he can do? With a click of a button, he can prevent your store from receiving any payments. He can prevent you from making payroll to any of your employees. He can prevent you with just a click from ordering any more stock. And if you give him a hard time, he's like, well then, with a push of a button, I've turned off your personal account. The government would also have the ability to say, listen, I say nobody's allowed to buy such and such a product. Click, you can't buy that anymore. Remember over there in New York City, they came out and said, hey, you're not allowed to buy these really big soft drinks because they're bad for you. Oh, you can still buy cigarettes and you can buy cigars and, alcohol, but you can't buy a very large soda pop because that's bad for you. With a click of a button, they could turn off what you are allowed to buy or to not buy. A lot of government oversight on everywhere you're going, on everything you're allowed to do. It's really inconvenient, and it's also setting us up for some catastrophes. Think about some natural disasters, such as Hurricane Katrina. That came through, and multiple counties were knocked out from electricity and internet service for months. Well, if it was only a cashless society where everything is done digitally, if you don't have access to internet service, or if you don't have access to electricity to power your phone because the power's been knocked out for weeks or months at a time, then you have no way to buy gasoline to get out of there. You have no way to buy food. You have no way to rent a hotel room because maybe your house has been destroyed or severely damaged. If we still had cash, these areas could still be operating even under these disastrous conditions. But if internet service goes out, if power goes out, where people cannot charge their mobile devices so they can show, look, I do have money to buy this. If after just 2 or 3 days, everybody's phone's going to run out of power. And if they don't have the power grid up, a cashless society would set up for a second disaster after the natural disaster. And it's one we could avoid if we still use some paper money or, even some coins to do stuff. Let's think about this as well. So not only are these reasons for freedom-loving Americans not to want the government to have so much oversight of everything you're doing, not to have so much control over everything that you're allowed to buy or not buy, or allowed to be open or not be open. It's also setting up for a catastrophe of natural disasters. It's also something that Christians should be pushing against. The Bible talks about having a cashless society in the end days in the book of Revelation. Notice what the Bible says. Here is Revelation chapter number 13, and it's talking about how the Antichrist and the false prophet are going to set something up. Notice what it says. And he causeth all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads, and that no man might buy or sell, save that he had the mark or the name of the beast or the number of his name. And so here you see, hey, unless you have this mark that the Antichrist is going to come up with, then you will not be allowed to buy and you are not allowed to sell. Now, if we still had cash, somebody would be willing to sell you stuff. Because if you got cash, I don't care what, people will sell you stuff. But if you go with a cashless society where you have to take this mark or you can't buy or sell anything, that's the kind of system that the Antichrist eventually is going to set up. And all this idea of moving to a cashless society is just moving us one step closer to that. And myself as a Christian, I want to push back against the Antichrist agenda with everything that I have in every possible way. And today that means pushing back against this idea of a cashless society. I hope this has been informative for you and that you will share it. Make sure that you click that like button and subscribe so you'll be notified the next time that there's a video. And until next time, I'm Lee Watts for Patriot Point. Stand strong and breathe free.